Okay, we're back. Happy Tuesday. Good to see everyone again. Make sure that you are answering these PDN questions on the computer, showing your work for the math part on your paper. At this point, you should be pausing your video, solving these, and coming back to check your answers. Okay, let's start with your PDN. Number one on the PDN said 3/10. It asks us to change that to a decimal. That's 0.30 and 3/10. Pretty straightforward. Number two, 0.45. We need to change it to a fraction. We know that the 45 is in the hundredths place, so that's going to be my denominator. 45 is my numerator. It reminded me to simplify. What number goes into both 45 and 100? It's 5, which gets me down to 9/20, which is what you should have put on your computer. Okay, yesterday we focused in on changing between fractions and decimals. Today we're adding a third category to percents. So yesterday we said that 1/10 is the same exact thing as 0.1. They're both 1/10. And what we need to add on today is that we also know that this is equal to 10%. So we're going to do two things today. We're going to change fractions to percents, and we're going to change decimals to percents. We're going to start with fractions. So for my first fraction, I knew that I always want my denominator in percents to be 100. So I had, for number one, 1/5, and I changed it to a denominator of 100, and I got 20/100. Let's think about how I did that. In order to get that answer, what I had to do was say 5 times 20 is 100, so 1 times 20 is 20. Once I have a denominator of 100, it's super easy to change that to a percent because I remember that all percents are out of 100. So 20 out of 100 is just 20%. Number two had us at 3/20. Again, we want our denominator to be 100 because in percents our denominator is always 100. When we have 3/20, what do I do to 20 to get to 100? I multiply it by 5. So 3 times 5 gives me 15. 15/100 is 15%. We have the same problem, though, with some fractions as we had yesterday. So today we have 3/8, which I cannot change to 100. 8 does not get to 100. When I run into that problem, I have to do a division problem, and I have to first change it to a decimal. So 3/8, I'm going to come over here and do 3 divided by 8. Goes in 0 times. Of course, when I'm working with decimals and percents, it's always going to be 0 point something. 8 goes into 32 3 times. 3 times 8 is 24. I subtract, I get 6. Bring down another 0. 8 goes into 60 7 times. 7 times 8 is 56. I subtract, I get 4. Still not done because I still have a remainder. Bring down one more 0. 8 goes into 45 times. 8 times 5 is 40, and I have my answer of 0.375. Remember that this is not a percent, and we're going to review this in just a second. To get from a decimal to a percent, we need to move the decimal over 2 times, so we get 37.5%. Okay, so that's the answer that you should put on your paper. When you go to your computer to put 37.5%, you should write in 37.5, and then remember on your keyboard, if you hold down the shift key and the 5, you'll get the percent sign, 37.5%. Okay, for example set 2, I know it's easier for some of you to just copy these down. If you want to copy them down, and then unpause your video once they copied down. Okay, 0.39, we know that as a fraction, this is 39 hundredths. It's already in a hundredths, so it's 39%. Number 2 is 0.5, which is 5/10. We want it to be hundredths. 10 times 10 is 100, so 5 times 10 is 50, which gives me 50%. 50 out of 100 is 50%. If we can change it to hundredths, we're in good shape. Number 3, there's 2 ways to do number 3. I have 0.524. I could say that this is 524/1,000, And since I want a percent to be over 100, I could move the decimal back one place and back one place and get 52.4 over 100, which gives me 52.4%. The other way to think about this is that, remember, to change a decimal to a percent, we just need to move that decimal 2 times over, 1, 2, which would give me 52.4%. Either method is okay because this is review. We've learned both methods. We can use both methods. Alrighty, for your practice today, again, you have a problem set. The first thing you're doing is changing fractions to percents. Then you're changing decimals to percents. I can tell you that this one is going to be your trickiest one, 1/8. That's what you'll want to spend the most time on. Go ahead and pause this video right now, solve these questions, and come back to check your answers. Okay, for set 1. Number 1, we had 8 over 25. I know I want that to be over 100 because all percents are over 100. Multiply times 4, multiply times 4. We get 32 over 100, which is 32%. As a 6th grader, you should know in your brain that 25 times 4 is 100. Remember, our factors of 100 are 5, 10, 20, 25, 50. All of those are ones that you should be able to do just in your brain without doing scrap work. Number 2, we had 17 over 50. I want it to be out of 100 because all percents are out of 100. I multiply times 2. 17 times 2 is 34, so I get 34%. For number 3, 1 over 8. I want it to be over 100. Unfortunately, I cannot get from 8 to 100. So my only other thing that I can do is a division problem. 1 divided by 8, 0.1. 1 times 8 is 8. Subtract, bring down my 0. 2, subtract, bring down another 0. And 8 goes into 45 times. So my answer is 0.125. I know that that is not a percent, that's just a decimal. And as we reviewed, to change that to a percent, I'm going to move the decimal twice, 1, 2, so I get 12.5%. If your decimal is in the wrong place, your answer is wrong, so double check your answer now. For the second set of problems on problem set 1, we had 0.35, which is 35 over 100. Hopefully you didn't waste any time trying to simplify that or anything like that, because we actually want it to be out of 100. We don't need it to be simplest form. And once it's out of 100, we know that it's 35%. Number 2 was 0.325. We could say that's 325 out of 1,000. And then move the decimal back once to make it out of 100, gives me 32.5%. The other way to think about this is just move the decimal twice, 1, 2, and I get 32.5%. For number 3 is 1.2, which is 1 2/10. Still want to change that to out of 100. Times 10 times 10 gives me 20, so this is 1 20 100ths, which is equal to 120%. Ways I figured that out, I knew my whole number is going to be worth 100%. I also could have done 100 times 1 plus 20 is 120 over 100, so that is another way to think about 120%. Okay, you're now on problem set number 2. Go ahead and copy these problems down onto your practice page, and then hit pause. What's that? Extra credit alert. I didn't forget today. Okay, extra credit for today. Remember, it's Tuesday, so you can send this to me between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. on Tuesday. 847-769-4731. Extra credit points for today. We've all been spending a lot of time at home. Because we've been spending a lot of time at home, we've spent a lot of time on Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime. So far, I've gotten through Tiger King. Not appropriate for kids, but awesome. If you have other suggestions for me on Netflix, Hulu, or Amazon Prime, text them to me now, and I'll text back with how your extra credit has affected your grade. I need to know what to watch. Thanks. Back to math. Okay, problem set 2. Make sure that you are solving these questions. At this point, you should pause the video and solve them, and then come back and check your answers. For set 2, number 1, we had 2 over 5. Want that to be out of 100. 5 times what is 120? 2 times 20 is 40, which gives me 40%. Number 2, 7 out of 50. Get to 100. Times 2 times 2 gives me 14 out of 100, which is 14%. Number 3, 7 out of 25. Again, needed out of 100. Times 4 times 4 gives me 28, which is 28%. At the bottom, we have decimals. We're changing those decimals to percents. Still want them to be out of 100. The 8 is in the hundredths place, so I know that it's 8 over 100, which is 8%. Number 2, 1.5 is 1 and 5 tenths, which is 1 and 50 100ths, which is 150 over 100. 150 over 100 is 150%. I also could have gotten that just by moving my decimal twice to the right. 1, 2 gives me 150%. Number 3, 0.9 is 9 tenths. We reviewed that yesterday, which is 90 100ths, which gives me 90%. Okay, you are ready for your exit ticket. On your exit ticket, you have 2 questions. Make sure that you've written your answers here. Make sure that you have used the percent symbol, and make sure that when you are done, you hit turn in. Remember, I cannot grade it or comment on it until it's turned in. Your kind assignment today is the second one that you've been assigned for this week. Make sure you're keeping up with that so you don't have a lot of work to do on Friday. As always, if you have questions, send me a text, give me a call, 847-769-4731. See you all tomorrow.